Namaste, Namaste, and a very, very warm welcome to Damru and to the opening session of Bilwa 2021. I'm Mauli Baviskar, and the whole team of Damru is super excited and happy that we could come up in these times with a very fantastic lineup of speakers for all of us to enrich and to enjoy these sessions. So, while joy is so fundamental to us, it should also contribute to our growth, and that is what our aim is in Bilwa, to keep you entertained and involved and yet moving towards our own self seeking. So, with that intent in mind, Bilwa, as every year, has come up with a different theme this time. So, if you all remember, last year the theme for Bilwa was Bharatiya Parampara, and we were taking a glimpse into the ancient healing systems in our culture. This year, however, with this onslaught of all these online sessions or knowledge classes or everything that is available, there is a lot of misappropriation that is happening to the yoga parampara. Yoga, what it means holistically, and where it is rooted, where it has taken birth. Somewhere that whole thing I feel sometimes is sidelined, and people jump into the accessories of yoga and the yoga mat culture and the yoga wear and whatnot. So this year, the theme for our Bilwa annual yoga festival is cultural appropriation of yoga. The necessity to embrace the inherent Indianness of the yogic tradition, to look at it holistically and to look at the roots from which this whole sadhana has sprung about. And therefore, we're also, if you see the topics of all the speakers, the most popular um, expression of yoga, as we know in these days, would be a yoga mat with tight clothes and doing some asanas, twisting here and there. So that is exactly what we are not going to do in Bilwa this time. Just so that there is nothing against asanas is a very important anga of the whole practice. But at the same time, there are so many facets that maybe we are not aware of, or maybe we are not giving them or understanding the importance of them, or sometimes deliberately sidelining those as a cultural misappropriation. So, to bring back in the whole context the Indianness and the holistic approach of this parampara or this sadhana is what we dedicate this festival to this year. So, join us. And today with us we have Ms. Charvi Dhulia Shah. I invite our speaker. We are very happy that you are a part of Bilwa. Thank you for coming. Today, Charviji will be sharing with us the topic that she is going to share with us is living in harmony with Pancha Mahayagya. So, I will give you a short introduction to our wonderful speaker today, a Vedanta student who incidentally is an architect, interior designer, artist, and a very happy mom. Charvi Dhulia Shah was born in Surat and graduated as an architect from Sept University. As she got married, she moved to Mumbai, and with her husband, they were practicing architecture and design. But the artist in her, she's always been into creating a lot of artworks and paintings. Especially, she loves teaching art and art history to children. Yes, that segment of society is very dear to her. And before I move on, I should tell you that we have been friends together for, I think, more than 2 decades now. So as we grew in our lives, as we moved in our paths, we see each other growing and blossoming. And believe me, that's a beautiful feeling to see each other going through all the ups and downs. And while I am here being practicing as a yoga therapist, as a sound therapist, Charvi has moved on into the path of Vedanta. So while she was teaching art, she was practicing architecture with her husband. Life was happy, but there was something that she felt was missing. In that seemingly fulfilling life, she was not at peace. There were constant questions and there was a constant seeking and questioning a lot of fundamental things about life, about human birth, about happiness, and so much more. And this seeking led her onto a journey where she found her teacher, K. Srinivasanji. He is a direct disciple of Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji. And with him, she was introduced to the Shastras where she found her answers. So, under his guidance, she's been studying Vedanta for some years now and predominantly devoting herself now to the study and practice of Vedanta. Charvi is also teaching the fundamentals of Vedanta in a very simple, understandable manner, showing the path to a more harmonious and peaceful life. And on that note, I would also be happy to share with you all that she has gracefully accepted invite from the Damru team, and under the Damru Foundation, we are introducing a course in Vedanta, an introduction to Vedanta, and Charviji will be leading the course. I would urge all of you listeners, you can first know about the course because this course would need commitment from your side, and serious seekers are invited to please join the Saturday Sanghas. Please go to our website, you'll find the details, and if you want to register, all of that is there on Damru's website. So with that short introduction, I would now give the stage to Charviji and let her start her topic for today. Charviji, once again, a very warm welcome to Damru.
Thank you, Molly, for this kind introduction and also for giving me the opportunity to talk on the topic of Panchamahayagnas, which is such an important sadhana, beneficial not only to the practicing individual, but for the entire universe. And I also want to congratulate Damru and wish you guys the best for the Bilva festival. Really, really looking forward to all the talks. Congratulations. Okay, now before we start discussing our topic, I would like to chant a little prayer. Can I, Molly? Om Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshana Murtaye Namaha Sadashiva Samarambha Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryanta Vande Guru Parampara. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om. All right. So our topic for today is Panchamahayagnas. Panchamahayagnas means the 5 great yagnas. The 5 Mahayagnas, they come under the compulsory duties of an individual as ordained by our Shastras. Okay, so now don't get intimidated by the name, okay? So don't get an impression that it will involve some elaborate rituals like the Rajsuya Yagna or the Ashwamedha Yagna or others that we hear about in the Itihasas and the Puranas. Okay, so no, there is no rocket science involved. These fivefold yagnas are really simple, but they are mandatory daily activities. Okay, and these yagnas, they first create harmony in all the aspects of the universe, and secondly, they create immense internal harmony within oneself. So that is the Panchamaha that we are going to talk about today. But before we get into our topic, we need to understand what is meant by dharma. So Mahabharata says that Shruyatam dharma sarvasvam shrutva chaivavadharyatam atmanaha pratikulani paresham na samacharet. I'm sure the second line most of you must have heard, right? So Shruyatam dharma sarvasvam shrutva chaivavadharyatam means may all of you, may everyone listen to what is said about dharma or the correct way of life. And after listening, may all of you cautiously follow the advice, put the advice into our lives. So, Shruyatam dharma sarvasvam shrutva chaivavadharyatam. And they are giving some advice and they are asking us to follow some advice. Now, what is this advice? The advice here is Atmanaha pratikulani paresham na samacharet. So it means that the sum of dharma or the essence of dharma is that one should not do to others or wish for others what they do not what is not good for the doer himself, what they do not want to happen to themselves. So even the Bible says that, right? Do not do unto others as you do not want others to do unto you, or do unto others what you want others to do unto you. Correct? अपने आप को जो दुखदाई लगे वैसा आचरण दूसरों के साथ मत करिए. This is dharma. Simple. And the fun fact over here is that every person in this world inherently knows dharma, naturally. So even the most naive, the most ignorant person also intrinsically knows what is good for himself, correct? For example, even a little child, okay? Even if we take the example of a little child, he will not want anyone to take away his toy, or he will not want anyone to hit him or even shout at him, correct? So here, the child inherently knows that he wants non-violence. He wants ahimsa from others. So he naturally knows what he wants others to do to him. So definitely the child also knows what he should be doing to others. So the child also knows what dharma is. Okay. Now let us take another example. Say we take the most dangerous of the criminals. Okay. Now the most dangerous of the criminals also, he knows what is the right thing to do. It might sound surprising, but take the biggest of the gunda. Okay. He will expect that his assistant should always tell the truth to him. Hence, he knows the value of Satya. He wants his subordinates to always be faithful to him. Now, this fellow might go around killing other people. He might go around harming other people, hurting other people all the time. But will he ever want any violence done unto him or his family? Will he ever agree for that? No. Hence, he knows the value of non-violence. Hence, when we observe, we'll realize that everyone inherently knows what they want others to do to them and what they do not want others to do to them. Hence, we can say that everyone inherently has the knowledge of what they should or should not be doing to others. This knowledge is naturally given to all of us by birth. Hence, we can conclude that everyone inherently knows dharma. So we can never give that excuse ki, I did this because I did not know that it was wrong. Because we all naturally know what is right and what is wrong. This dharma must be followed universally by everyone. So from today, can we all have a little life mantra that every action first must go under the dharma scanner and only then it should be executed? Can we have that kind of a mantra cognitively? Can we just, take a sankalp that whatever action I'm about to perform, I will first pass it through the dharma scanner, and only if I get a green signal in the dharma scanner, only then I will execute that action. So initially it might take some effort from our end, definitely. It might take some awareness from our end. But in a few weeks' time, it becomes really spontaneous and natural to us, just like drinking water or eating food. So then what will happen, that any action that we do which is not aligned with dharma, which we would not want to be done unto us, any action like that, if we are about to execute, then what will happen? Our inner radars, they'll start beeping. We will be more and more sensitive towards our physical actions, our verbal actions. Verbal actions means our words. And we'll also be much more sensitive and aware about the manasa actions, the mental actions or our thoughts. That means that we would never do or never wish for others what is not good for ourselves. So what is dharma is simple and it is clear now. Correct? We all know it. This is dharma. There is no rocket science. Now, to emphasize its importance a little bit, let's discuss this topic a little more. So, Maharshi Vedvyasa, he has written so many Puranas, and all these Puranas, they also contain the teachings of the Veda itself, but in an elaborated manner. And Maharishi Vyasa, he says that all the Dharma Shastrams, which are elaborated in all the Puranas, give only two simple messages, which can be presented in just two simple lines. That means that you take all the Puranas, you take the entire Dharma Shastras, and if you have to write a summary of all these texts, you can write the summary in just two simple lines. He says, Ashtadasha Puraneshu Vyasasya Vachanadvayam Paropkaraha Punyaya Papaya Parapidanam. So in all the 18 Puranas, Vyasacharya has conveyed only two main messages. First is Paropkara leads to Punyam, and Parapidanam, or giving pain to others, brings Papam. So Paropkara means all the activities that we do which are beneficial to others, which are helpful to others, and without having any selfish motive for ourselves in doing those activities. Those are called Paropkara activities. So all these selfless, beneficial activities which are done for helping others, for the benefit of others, they bring punyam, or good fortune, or good luck, or sukham, as a fruit of the punyam. And the second line says that parapidanam brings papam. So parapidanam means all those activities which are harmful to others. So not only human beings, okay, but animals, plants, environment, any activity which causes any harm to any aspect of the entire universe is called parapedanam, and that causes papam. So whenever I harm anyone through my actions or my words or even my thoughts, I am generating papam for myself, or I'm bringing ill fortune or bad luck or pain or suffering as a fruit of those harmful activities. Therefore, our Shastras suggest that we have to be bigger contributors than consumers. Very, very, very important statement. We have to be bigger contributors than consumers. Impress it in your mind. So, in any relationship, we must contribute more than we take. Any relationship, so be it a husband and wife relationship, be it a parents and children relationship, employer-employee relationship. So that also includes our domestic help, our garbage collecting person, our boss, our subordinates. Then what other relations are there? So not a relationship actually does not mean only with people. Even in the relationship with the environment, we should try and be contributors. We should try and do paropkara. Giving our contribution selflessly is called paropkara. Correct? So we should try and do paropkara and completely avoid or at least reduce as far as possible the parapedanam activities. So another life mantra. So first life mantra is the definition of dharma. So everything should go under the dharma scanner before acting. And another life mantra is that we should always try and be bigger contributors than consumers. So in other words, we must have more credit than debit in our dharma or punya bank account. We can say that, right? We should have more credit in our dharma bank account or punya bank account. Okay. And Krishna himself says in the Gita that the one who is just going on consuming without giving his offering or without giving his contribution is nothing but a thief. That is why, our culture is a giving culture. It is a culture of danam. It is not a grabbing culture. It is actually not a culture of greed. So take, for example, any Western store or even West influenced Indian stores. So these kind of stores, they will have their prices like, $4.99 or $1.99 or $9.99, right? Those customers, they feel happy by giving ₹1 kam. ₹1 kam dene se pata nahi kya khushi mil jati hai. But ours is actually a giving culture. So whenever we have to give anyone, how much do we give? We give 101, we give 501, we give 1001, 10,001, whatever. Hamesha ₹1 zyada. So this is just symbolic of our attitude. The attitude of giving more than is required. That is suggested by our tradition. Be a bigger contributor. Correct? So now we know that whenever there is a relationship, I cannot only consume, I cannot only take, I cannot only receive, but I should be on the giving end also. I should also contribute. And I should cultivate that kind of sensitivity. So is this clear? So engrave these 2 points in your system. Very important. It will really help us in our lives. First is, I must never do to others what I don't want others to do unto me. And secondly, I cannot be only a consumer in any relationship. I must offer my contribution too. So also remember that there are no free lunches ever. There is never any free item in this universe. Whatever you think you're getting for free, no, for that thing, either you have already paid for or you will be forced to pay for. So you will be forced to pay for it in some form or the other. That is, if you do not voluntarily give your share of contribution. Okay. So how will we be forced to pay? It could be in the form of, say, business losses, or maybe being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or maybe hospital bills, or conflicts, or mental unrest. We don't know. It could be in any form. So instead of reaching a situation where we have to forcibly pay, what would be the wise thing to do? The wise thing to do would be to just make sure that you are a bigger contributor. You don't have any debts left behind with anyone or anything. Correct? All right. So now, after this background understanding, let us get into what do we mean by the word yajna. We say we are going to talk about the Panch Mahayagnas, no, today. So what do we mean by the word yajna? So the word yajna comes from the root yaj, which means to worship. Yajna is a very broad concept, which is a little difficult to translate in English. But the closest English word that would come would be sacrifice or offering or worshipping. So in the general sense, yajna could be understood as an action, as a selfless action done with a sense of sacrifice, like praying, giving offerings, meditating, offering our gratitude, or basically doing anything as a contribution. This is what yajna means. Now that we broadly understand the word yajna, let us look at why we are talking about 5 yajnas or the 5-fold contribution. We are saying Panch Mahayagnas, no? So why are we talking about the 5-fold contribution? So if we observe our life from the time we are born till the time we die, or from the time we wake up till we go to sleep, if we observe our life, we will realize that whatever we are enjoying, all the necessities, all the comforts, all the pleasures, and even this very life, everything that we are enjoying, nothing would be possible if not for so many factors contributing towards it. We in our arrogance might keep saying that, oh, I have achieved so much in life. Oh, I have done so much. I'm so great and all that. But on little analysis, we come to know that whatever we are or whatever we have achieved in life is because of immense contribution from so many aspects of the creation. So just start with how you were created. The 5 elements, the Panch Mahabhutas contributed to your creation. They created you. So you are indebted to the elements. You are indebted to your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors. Then you are indebted to the sun, the air, the water, without which life is not possible. We are indebted to the plants that give us food. We are indebted to the animals. We are indebted to the countless number of people who are working in any department. You just think of road construction, bridge construction, electricity. Think of sanitation department. The smallest thing to the biggest thing. So just imagine a little pencil, okay? For a little pencil to reach your table, how many aspects of the universe have contributed. Just think about it. So many forests were there. The wood came from the forest contributed, the trees contributed, and then for the graphite was mined, and then the lead was made, some processes were done. Just a little pencil for it to reach your table, countless number of aspects of the universe have been contributing. So anything that you take, like you go to office every day, we all have so much pride of our position and everything, right? For us to go to the office, the road that was created, how many agencies, how many aspects of the universe have contributed just to make that road, just to make the office building, the chair, the table, the computer. So basically, infinite contributions from infinite aspects of this universe make everything possible in our lives. We have to accept this. And we can divide all these aspects of the universe into 5 groups. And we can call them the 5-fold infrastructure. It's this 5-fold infrastructure, the 5-fold infrastructure of the entire universe, that makes everything possible for us. It is this 5-fold infrastructure that makes life possible for us. Okay, now tell me, how do we respond if anyone does something for us, or if anyone gives something to us? Say you were sick. Say we got COVID and we were quarantined, and what happened? Our neighbors, they sent meals for us. So what would you do? We say thank you. That's the least we do. And not only do we say thank you, but we feel an immense sense of gratitude towards them, right? They really helped us. They did a favor on us. And we also want to do something for them in return. Correct? Now think that if we should be grateful for a small meal or a small favor done by someone, then what to talk about the level of gratitude that we should have towards the 5-fold infrastructure of the universe? So in all these 5 yagnas, in the Pancha Mahayagnas, what I'm doing is I am offering my gratitude, I am offering my contribution to the 5-fold infrastructure of the universe. As we saw before, we can't be only consumers, correct? And what are we doing? We are constantly taking so much from the universe. Hence, it is my duty to give my contribution and my gratitude. These 5-fold infrastructure includes all the aspects of the universe. So through Pancha Mahayagnas, I am contributing to the welfare of all other aspects of creation. And if we spend some time and contemplate, then we'll realize that the contribution of each of these aspects is so great in our lives that it is impossible to give back what we have received from them. But whatever I can, in my capacity, whatever I can, I contribute to each of these factors. And how do I contribute? I contribute with an immense sense of gratitude. That is what I do in Pancha Mahayagnas. It is no big deal. It is I contribute my share with an immense sense of gratitude to the 5-fold aspects of the universe. So they are like a to-do list that all of us have to do every single day without fail. All of us need to develop that discipline. So we will clearly understand the exact way of doing these Pancha Mahayagnas. We'll clearly see how we are going to do these Pancha Mahayagnas. And you will realize that it is very doable. It is very doable for everyone, however busy you are. So don't get intimidated, okay? And also look at the grandeur. These yagnas are called Mahayagnas, means they must be more beneficial than even the other yagnas and the homas that we talk about. None of them are called Mahayagnas, right? Okay, so let us now just look at the names of these fivefold yagnas first, and then we will look at all the five in detail. So the Panch Mahayagnas are firstly Deva Yagna. Deva Yagna is my contribution to the elemental infrastructure, the infrastructure of the elements. Then second is Pitru Yagna. Pitru Yagna means my contribution to the family and ancestral infrastructure. Third is Brahma Yagna, my contribution to the Vedic cultural infrastructure. Fourth is Manushya Yagna, my contribution to the societal infrastructure. And finally, the Bhuta Yagna. Bhuta Yagna means my contribution to the environmental infrastructure. So, Deva Yagna, Pitru Yagna, Brahma Yagna, Manushya Yagna, and Bhuta Yagna. Let us look at these five in detail. So the first yagna we said is Deva Yagna. So in this yagna, what do? We offer our contribution and gratitude towards the devatas, towards the deities. So these devatas who symbolize the elements, earth, water, fire, air, space, and also the sun, moon, and the celestial bodies. We say Surya Dev, Vayu Dev, Agni Dev, Dig Dev, correct? So all these devatas, they symbolize the elements. There are deities presiding over these elements. And in Deva Yagna, we offer our gratitude towards them. And as we saw before, everything in this universe, including ourselves, is made up of these elements. So how do we do Deva Yagna? So firstly, we can do Deva Yagna by offering different prayers to them. So by becoming aware and offering our prayers to the different elements. Like when we wake up and we put our first step down on the floor, what shloka do we chant? Samudre vasane devi parvatastana mandale Vishnupatni namastubhyam padasparsham kshamaswame. So here we worship earth as Devi and we are seeking apologies for putting our feet on her. So this creates sensitivity towards the element of earth. It creates awareness towards the element of earth. Then Gange cha Yamune chaiva Godavari Saraswati. So awareness and gratitude towards water. Then we can do Sandhya Vandanam thrice a day or Aditya Hridaya Stotram every day for the sun god. So like that, the entire day is punctuated with a sense of gratitude towards all the devatas or all the elements. Now honestly, it is very simple and very doable. Okay, if we don't know these shlokas or stotras also, although it's a very good thing if we can learn them, they have immense other benefits also. But in case if we don't know them, then what can we do? Say every time we drink water or wash our hands or bathe, we can become aware and we can thank the water element. The water element which is present in the entire universe and ourselves also. So even if we can't chant the shlokas, it is okay. Just become aware of the elements and wholeheartedly thank them. Wholeheartedly thank these devatas. Or every time you feel hot or you feel cold or you see the flame of your gas stove, thank the fire element. every time you become mindful of your breath, or maybe you feel the pleasant breeze on your skin, you can thank the air element. So in this manner, you understand, right, that it's really not a big deal. It is absolutely doable. It's just that we need to get more aware and more sensitive towards the elements or the devatas. So this is how throughout the day, our entire day can be punctuated, and this does not even require an extra dedication of time. Okay, like while we are doing activities, we can just become aware of these elements, these devatas, and keep on thanking them. And like we said before also, that everything in this universe is actually made up of these 5 elements. Hence, the prayers for the well-being of everyone and everything in this creation also is a part of Deva Yagna. So we can just stand in front of the Lord in the form of any Ishta Devata, and with our full heart we can say a noble prayer. And what should that prayer be? So the prayer should not be the list of our demands from God, okay? I mean, you could have that prayer also, but it should surely include the noblest of the prayer. The noblest of the prayer asking for the welfare of the entire world. And our scriptures give some amazing prayers like that, no? They give so many Shanti mantras and some really nice prayers like Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Swasthir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Or if that is difficult for us, we can just say Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Only that much can be remembered, right? And if even that is difficult, then in our own language, we can just request God every single day for the well-being of the whole universe, like our duty. It is our duty to do that. A sincere, heartfelt, deep prayer. And you know, a sincere, heartfelt prayer is the most powerful contribution. It will help not only the entire humanity, not only animals, plants, but it goes even beyond the terrestrial plane. Prayers like Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Such a beautiful prayer. So I can just I can utter these prayers in front of the Lord in any language. It need not be Sanskrit. It could be your own language. It could be your own words. But by chanting prayers like these, we are doing a great contribution to the creation. And you know the best part about these prayers? In any service, okay, in any social service, in any kind of reaching out activities, we can reach out to only a particular geographical area. So no human being or no institution can reach all the areas of creation. But this one prayer is the most extensive prayer, which is beneficial to the whole creation. And therefore, this is the most extensive as well as the least expensive paropkara. So when we say, so we need to increase our Dharma bank account, our Punya bank account. So this can be the most extensive and the least expensive paropkara. Listen, this is just a carrot that I'm giving you. There are way more benefits for it. So it is just a joke, okay? So it is the most extensive and the least expensive paropkara. So extensive, obviously, because it extends to everything and everyone in the creation. And what is the expenditure that is involved? The expenditure is just a few minutes, a few words, but with a sincere most bhavna, a sincere most heart. So never miss doing these prayers. Every single day, make it a rule. And then another thing we can do as a part of Deva Yagna is we can pray to our Ishta Devatas. It could be Shiva, it could be Vishnu, it could be Ram, Krishna, Devi, so Mataji in any form. It could be any of the 24 Tirthankars. It could be Lord Buddha or Jesus or Allah, whichever is your favorite symbol of the God. We should pray to them and do puja to them in Kayika, Vachika or Manasa form. Kayika form means physical seva puja, or Vachika form means the stotras, the japa, the parayanam, or Manasa puja, the mental puja, which is like the Shiva Manas puja. It is really beautiful. So we can do Deva Yagnas in these three ways. Awareness and gratitude towards individual devatas, which we can do throughout the day. Then prayers for the whole universe and prayers to our Ishta Devata. So this is Deva Yagna, the first Yagna. Now let us move to the second Yagna, which is Pitru Yagna. In Pitru Yagna, I express my gratitude and do whatever I can for my parents and for all the forefathers, all the ancestors. So we owe so much to our parents, and all of us will agree to that. We owe so much to our parents, to our grandparents. So whatever we are today, such a big part of it we owe to them. The greatest society, the greatest service, not only to their own children, but to the entire society is that of the parents. How the society is going to turn out depends so much on today's parents. And if parents are going to are able to do a good job in that, that is because of their parents, which is in turn because of their parents. So we should have an immense sense of gratitude towards our parents and our ancestors. And not only our ancestors, but the entire community of ancestors. Because this entire community of ancestors has worked so hard, they have made evolution possible. They have made culture possible. They have made inventions and discoveries possible. They have made independence possible. So it's because of this entire community of ancestors that we are enjoying the refinement, the comfort, and the luxuries today. Without them, the fire would not be invented, nor would the fire engine be invented. So we would not have computers, we would not have mobile phones if the early generation models were not invented. Take any small thing that is useful to us, like maybe a spoon or a bowl or a glass, and you will realize that creation of the smallest of the thing, its roots actually date way back to our ancestors. Correct? Take any small thing and you will realize, oh my God, it was like created, the root of it was actually created. So many generations of ancestors have worked for its creation. Correct? So we owe a great deal to our Pitrus, to the entire community of Pitrus, the entire community of the ancestors. So Pitru Yagna firstly involves giving love, care, and respect to our existing parents as our duty. We cannot digress from that. And for the ancestors who are no more with us in their physical bodies, for them, we must do their Shraddha and Tarpan rituals. So these rituals actually come under Naimittika karmas. That means they are mandatory duties, mandatory occasional duties, and they cannot be avoided. And if for some reason we are unable to do those rituals, then too, every single day, we must pray for the ancestors. We must thank them wholeheartedly. We cannot forget this community. We can pray for their well-being, their happiness. So wherever they are, help them to be in a better place. We can do that, right? So this is our second yagna, the Pitru Yagna. Now we come to our third yagna, which is called the Brahma Yagna. So Brahma Yagna is expressing my gratitude to all the rishis who have given us the Vedas and the secondary scriptures. So Brahma here means Veda. Brahma Yagna means Veda Yagna. So in which I worship both the scriptures and the authors of the scriptures, the discoverers of the scriptures, the rishis, because of whom we are enjoying this wonderful holistic culture today. Okay. Now, we may say that yes, we are immensely grateful to the rishis, but in what way can we help these rishis? In what way can we contribute? Because they are already free. Yes, the Shastras say that we can help them. We can help them by preservation and propagation of this wonderful teaching, by preservation and propagation of these scriptures which are given out by the rishis. So whatever I do to preserve and propagate the scriptures is a very great service, because the scriptures are the only way that the human being is guided to his highest goal. Hence, scriptures are very, very important for humanity. Now, there are three ways in which we can do Brahma Yagna. So, the first way is that the very sound of these scriptures helps in creating peace. And that is why we value Parayanam as a great sadhana. So, when I chant the scriptures aloud, that very Shabda, that very Veda Ghosh, the loud chanting, purifies the creation by its vibrations. So doing regular Parayanam is Brahma Yagna. And also through regular Parayanam and memorizing the Veda mantras, we are contributing in preserving them. Correct? So that is the first way in which we can do Brahma Yagna, by doing Parayanam. The second way in which we can do Brahma Yagna is when I directly help in preservation and propagation of the scriptures by systematic learning and teaching. But it is important to understand that when we talk about learning and teaching, it has to be systematic, it has to be structured, and it has to be done for consistently for a length of time. So in teaching, there is development. In teaching, there is connection between every topic, and all these ideas, all the ideas that we are learning in the Vedic teaching, they are supported through, firstly, scriptures, then through logic, and through experience. So it is not a set of blind belief, it is not a set of beliefs that are blindly followed. But it is a set of teaching which is meant for understanding. So with the help of Shruti, Yukti and Anubhava, when we systematically learn the Shastras, it is called Brahma Yagna. And after learning, when we systematically teach the Shastras, again, it is called Brahma Yagna, and it is also a great para upkara karma. Why? Because Vidya Danam Sarvadanat Pradhanam. We can do different forms of charity, food, money, anything, all different forms of charity. But the best charity is considered to be Vidya Danam. And scriptural teaching is considered to be the best form of Brahma Yagna. Now, the third way in which we can do Brahma Yagna is to contribute in supporting those people, in supporting those institutions, those acharyas who have devoted themselves completely to learning and teaching of these scriptures. Hence, by contributing in their sustenance, we are preserving the Shastras indirectly. We are not directly learning and teaching, but we are indirectly preserving the Shastras by sustaining the acharyas, the institutions. Okay. So these are the three ways in which we can do Brahma Yagna. The first way is through chanting or Parayanam. Then the second is through studying the scriptures, which is called Adhyayan, and propagating the teaching, which is called Adhyapanam. And the third way is by taking care of the sustenance of the acharyas. So this is our third Mahayagna, the Brahma Yagna, learning and sharing the scriptural knowledge. Now let us go to the fourth Mahayagna, the Manushya Yagna. So all forms of social service, the Samaj Seva Karyas, they come under this Yagna. Running orphanages, helping old people who do not have any help, building schools, building hospitals, all forms of social service. And it need not be at such a large scale also. We can do Yatha Shakti Manushya Yagna. Yatha Shakti means as per our capacity. Simple things like every single day we can give food to maybe our domestic help or maybe to the watchman. So Shastras say that we must feed at least one person every day. And that is besides our kith and kin, okay? Or we could even carry some biscuit packets in our bag whenever we are stepping out. And whenever we find somebody needy, we can give one to them, or giving books or stationaries to unaffording students, or teaching them, or paying their school college fees. Any small or big thing that is possible for us, we must do every single day. And on some day, for some reason, if we can't do any of these things, then also, just talking nicely to someone, just smiling at someone, or maybe just listening to someone's heart pouring, that is also okay. Even a smile or a few kind words can really make someone's day. But yes, those things are very important, which we can do otherwise also. But don't make it like an escape thing कि हाँ मैंने ये कर लिया तो मेरा मनुष्य यज्ञ हो गया. So don't make it like an escape thing. As far as possible, do yatha shakti danam. Could be anna danam, vidya danam, vitta danam, whatever is possible, in whatever small or big way. But it has to be done every single day, compulsorily and consistently, in some form or the other. So this is Manushya Yagna. Now, Manushya Yagna is very widely prevalent even today, and it really does not need much explanation. But the problem today is a little different. The problem today is that people feel that Manushya Yagna can replace all other 4 yagnas. This is the problem of present day humanity. We keep Manushya in the center all the time. Even if other aspects of the universe might need more attention, we keep Manushya only as the center of, as the object of our seva or service, of our contribution, because of proper lack of understanding. So, it is actually like saying that although I have so many organs in the body, which make my body function, all these organs together keep my body going and alive, yet I am going to take care of only one organ of my body. Say, I will just take care of my heart, and I will only contribute to the well-being of my heart. I will only take care of my heart, and I will not take care of all my other organs. That is foolishness, right? The body will collapse. All are equally important. So we need to understand that we are grouping the entire creation into fivefold infrastructure, and the universal harmony, balance, well-being as well as sustenance is possible only when all the five are very well preserved and taken care of. Just like our body, all the organs need to be taken care of, right? And that is why we do the Panchamahayagnas, to give our little contribution in the preservation of all the five infrastructure. And hence giving our contribution in the well-being of this entire creation. Therefore, Manushya Yagna or social service, although very, very important, it can never be a replacement for others. Okay. So in addition to Manushya Yagna, we have to offer our gratitude and paropkara towards everything else also. So this is the fourth one, Manushya Yagna. Now we have come to our fifth Mahayagna, the Bhuta Yagna. All forms of contribution to all living beings, to all beings other than the human beings. So gratitude and service towards human, non-human living beings, as well as non-living beings like plants, animals, mountains, rivers, everything. So basically, gratitude and contribution towards the environment. Gratitude and contribution towards the ecological infrastructure. That is called Bhuta Yagna. So what is Bhuta Yagna? Gratitude and contribution towards the environment, towards the ecological infrastructure. And in my opinion, today this yagna requires a lot of our attention. Because we have indiscriminately been exploiting the ecological infrastructure by just greedily consuming all that it is offering, going on consuming indiscriminately without contributing or showing any sensitivity towards this infrastructure. We should remember that all other beings are also contributing not only to my happy life, but even to my mere sustenance. My mere sustenance depends on them. Animals, plants, environment, they support our survival. We wouldn't exist without them, right? So, it is said that if the bees, the little honeybees, if they get extinct, then we'll not be able to survive for long on Earth. So imagine even a little bee contributes so much for our survival. Hence, it is our duty to offer gratitude to them and to contribute in whatever big and small ways towards their preservation as well as their growth. That is why only in our culture, we have always been so sensitive towards them, that we worship the plants, trees, animals, mountains, rivers, planets, everything in the creation. We seek pardon even if we stamp on an inanimate thing, right? That is what our tradition teaches us. It makes us remember their contribution. It makes us more sensitive towards all the infrastructure. So now, we have seen that all these beings, they contribute immensely towards us. And if you will think, if you will analyze, you will come to know that they have contributed so much that it is impossible for us to give back what we have received from the environment. So whatever we can do, that is possible from our end, in our capacity. For example, like definitely we are not capable to give water to the rivers, right? But the least we can do from our end is not to pollute the rivers, to not let them get destroyed. We can try and live a more eco-friendly life. We can pledge simple things like I will not take plastic bags from the vendors ever. I will carry my own tote bag, or I pledge to use as little resources as I can. I will be absolutely mindful about it. Every night before I go to sleep, I will check how many resources did I exploit through the day. And daily, I'll try and minimize my consumption. Correct? So if we cannot contribute on a large scale, like maybe we cannot go around and plant thousands of trees and grow a forest, which by the way many people do, but say we can't do that, then it is okay. But what we can surely do is we can have a little tulsi plant or any other plant at home and water it every day with an attitude of gratitude, with a wholehearted thank you towards the entire plant kingdom. That one little tulsi plant as a symbol of the entire plant kingdom. And remember, whenever you are doing these yagnas, no, don't just mechanically do it. Okay, this is my job, tick, 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 done. No, do it with a heartfelt emotion. Do it with this immense sentiment of gratitude and like so thankful to the entire kingdom. And thank you, you little tulsi plant, for being a symbol of the entire plant kingdom. So in the same way, we may not be able to take care of a fleet of animals, but the first thing that we can do and we must do is not to consume non-vegetarian food. Stop being a cause for that like absolutely unimaginable violence which is done towards them. That is the first thing we can do in Bhuta Yagna. And after that, the least we can do is put some rice or roti or bread outside for crows, for birds, or for cows, and symbolically offer your gratitude towards the entire animal kingdom. When you are offering, say thank you. And you know, there is a very beautiful practice in traditional Indian homes to do that white rangoli outside their houses. So traditionally, that rangoli used to be done with rice flour, chawal ka atta. So why that was done, you know? So that the ants can come and feed on that. And my teacher Srinivasanji always says that you need not feed 5,000 Brahmans if you do not have the resources. Just do these rangolis, feed 5,000 ants, and it's the same thing. So basically, do that with an attitude of gratitude, and you will get immense punyam. Right. So now this is our Bhuta Yagna. And now we know that the entire universe is divided into fivefold infrastructure, and we have to be grateful to them. We have to take responsibility to preserve them and give our contribution to them. Chota hi sahi, you know, it is okay. You know, most of the people, they get intimidated. I mean, they want to do good, but they feel ke, are, you know, hum kya kar sakte hai? Small things. Just remember that these 5 yagnas, make a to-do list of the 5 yagnas. Very, very doable, small things. Keep doing every day. So this awareness of the totality and gratitude and service towards the whole universe is the essence of the Pancha Mahayagnas. And just one more aside note, that these yagnas or the danam that we do should be done yatha shakti. What I just mentioned, that it need not be, don't get intimidated कि कुछ बहुत ही बड़ा करना पड़ेगा. It can be yatha shakti, but what is yatha shakti is a very subjective term, and only we ourselves would know what yatha shakti is for us, right? But generally it could mean that we should in our capacity contribute that much, after giving which it does not pinch us, or it does not put the people who are dependent on us under any stress or deficiency. Okay, so these are the Panch Mahayagnas. So now, after learning what the Panch Mahayagnas are, the definite question would be that why should I actually do these yagnas? So let me just, there are immense benefits, but let me just list down a few whys that you should do these yagnas. Okay. So firstly, the Panch Mahayagnas should be done because they are actions ordained or prescribed by the Shastras as our compulsory daily duties. They are our nitya karmas, they are our niyat karmas, and hence we do not have a choice but to follow them. Okay. Secondly, they help us gain chitta shuddhi. Chitta shuddhi means they help us gain purity of mind or equanimity of mind. They bring freedom from binding likes and dislikes, and hence, in simple words or indirectly, they bring freedom from all emotional problems. Thirdly, we must understand that it is the nature of our mind to naturally drift towards activities which are not beneficial for us or for others. That is the nature of the mind. It will naturally drift towards negative thoughts. You just leave your mind loose for a while. Anybody, you just leave your mind loose for a while, and what will happen? You will see that it will drift towards thoughts that generate maybe worry or anxiety or anger or jealousy or anything. Basically, maybe gossip. So, if we punctuate our entire day with these Panch Mahayagnas, these yagnas will actually pull the reins, pull the lagam of the mind and make it more aware and lead it to deliberate thinking. And these deliberate, willful thoughts will be beneficial to both yourself and to others. Why? Because these yagnas will be a constant reminder that we have to follow dharma, that we have to be aligned with dharma. I hope you remember what is dharma. We started our talk with the definition of dharma. Okay. So these Panch Mahayagnas, they help us to constantly remain in alignment with dharma. And and hence they will immensely contribute to our spiritual growth. Fourthly, they will give us a lot of satisfaction and joy. The joy of giving is immense. You will start experiencing this as you start practicing these. And they're small activities, they're small things, they're very doable. So start enjoying the joy of giving. And finally, the fifth benefit is, if we practice these yagnas every single day, what happens? Our children will observe. They will see that, oh, like mama, daddy are doing this every day. And if we practice them, the children will observe and they will also learn and they will also follow it. And that will help them being responsible and sensitive habitants of this universe and not just mindless consumers. And hopefully they'll have a better world to live in than what we are leaving behind for them, right? So for our children's sake also, it is very important that we do these yagnas. And you know what? Someone might say that, honestly, I don't care about these five benefits that you gave me of the Panch Mahayagnas. I mean, I really don't care whether I get spiritual growth. I really don't care whether my children learn or not. So yeah, maybe someone might say that. Even for that kind of a person, he must do these Mahayagnas. Even if he is a selfish person, he must do the Mahayagnas, because these Pancha Mahayagnas are the simplest way to have a huge Punya bank account. So, they are like the SIP, the systematic investment plans, small, consistent investments. Every day, so easily you can do these little things, like our regular chota investments that we keep doing regularly. And we will not even realize when these will have a huge punya balance, huge good fortune and all that. So, and we'll be in a much better position. The same thing that happens with our systematic investments, right? Small things we can easily keep investing, and end of it we are in a much better position. The same thing happens with Panch Mahayagnas. Okay, this is a very selfish attitude, and this is the last thing that you should have in mind. But if nothing else works, you should still have this attitude also and do it. But do it. So let us form a habit of practicing these Pancha Mahayagnas every single day without fail. So ऐसा नहीं कि एक दिन बहुत बड़ा contribution कर लिया, अब एक महीने का छुट्टी. No. So do it every day consistently. So then what will happen? After some time, it will become natural to us, like brushing our teeth or taking a bath or eating food. It will not even seem like a job. It will become very natural to us. And in a very short time, we'll start seeing lots of positive changes in our lives because of doing the Pancha Mahayagnas. But again, we should remember and beware not to turn these Mahayagnas into selfish actions. Don't have the attitude of what I will gain in return, but do it with the attitude that how I can contribute the most. Even when you're doing the Panch Mahayagnas, even when you are contributing, just keep repeating, thank you so much, thank you so much. I'm like really grateful to all of you for giving me so much. So do it with that attitude. Do it with the attitude of gratitude and not with the attitude of what I'll get in return. Okay. So here I would like to end my talk with an earnest request that all of us, firstly, let all our actions pass through the Dharma scanner, and let all of us practice these Pancha Mahayagnas every single day. Because this harmonious and sensitive way of living is the only way in which world will be a better place to live. Or rather, looking at the current conditions, we can also say that this harmonious way of living is the only way in which the world will sustain. Correct? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. With a formal kind of a thank you that I would give to other speakers, with Charvi ji, I would, with all my heart, I just feel like giving her a warm hug right now. So I'll just, on a lighter note, when the announcements of your talk were going out, there were my students and the people from Damru family and on the social media, and there were questions where they would ask that, "Ma'am, इस बार आप बिलवा में कुछ यज्ञ करवाने वाले हैं?" So that was the kind of understanding, or rather, we should say the lack of understanding that is there in regards to these kind of terms that we use. So you see how Charvi ji has made it so simple And in fact, that's the whole intention of Bilwa festival this time, where we compartmentalize things, whether it is yoga or whether it is our life, can we bring about a harmony? And what she said, simple things, and you would just imbibe in your day to day life, not burdening. In fact, it just brings joy. So when some rituals are told or some practices are told, the first thing is I don't have time. Oh my God, when will I do that? Now these kind of practices that she has said, it just becomes a part of your day. And remember, it's not a burden; it's a joy. But while I say that, I also want to emphasize on so important things that she said. Consumerist society that we have become, so becoming contributors, I think that should be the next cool thing. It's not the next, it has been since time immemorial, but just bringing it back to our awareness that rather than consuming, can we contribute? And the harmony, the alignment, it's not optional, and we're seeing the effect on the whole planet and the whole generation, and all of us, we are going out in conflict, more and more and more disconnected. So can we come in harmony? So amazing concepts and simple ways of actually doing them. It's not something it is preached in some other compartment or some other text. It is there right in front of you. Small steps and bringing about a huge change. Start with yourself and things around will change. It's magical, but watch that magic. So, yes, Charviji, thank you so much. But while I am so happy listening to you, I'm not going to leave you so early. There are some questions that have come while you were giving your talk. And if you are okay, then are you okay if I ask a couple of questions? Would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So first things first, important things, but a lot of things. I know you simplified it a lot,
Yeah.
but honestly, if you see, we are not used to so many Shastric terminology, and I'm sure a lot of younger generation is also listening to you today. So, would it be okay if you quickly summarize the five yajnas and how we can practice them every day in the busy schedule? I know it's like the whole talk, and I'm trying to put that in a nutshell, a capsule kind of a thing. But if you could do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I understand it is. It was a long talk, and for someone who's listening to it for the first time, it might sound like, "Oh, kitna sab karna hai," but it is not a lot. So maybe just go through the talk again, or just go through the summary again, and list down what you have to do every day. Just a few pointers, and then maybe for a week or 2 weeks you might have to look at the to-do list, that okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, and after that, as I said, it will become very spontaneous. Okay, so let me just quickly summarize the 5 yagnas and what we have to do in the yagnas. Okay, so first is Deva Yagna, that is our contribution to the elemental infrastructure, which includes the 5 elements, sun, moon, and other celestial bodies also. So we do this yagna by firstly awareness and gratitude and prayers towards all the elements or the devatas, the deities. Secondly, by prayers for the whole creation, like Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, all those prayers that we said, or prayers in your own words, but for the entire creation, for the well-being, for the goodwill of the entire universe, entire creation. And thirdly, by offering prayers, by offering Kayika, Vachika, and Manasa Puja to your Ishta Devata. You can learn one of the Manasa Pujas, like Shiva Manas Puja or something, and you will just totally enjoy doing it. it does not even take like 3 minutes, and you like totally enjoy doing it. Okay, so this was Deva Yagna. Then comes Pitru Yagna, our contribution to the family and ancestral infrastructure. So we do Pitru Yagna firstly by respecting and caring for our existing elders and offering prayers and gratitude to all the ancestors, to the entire community of ancestors, not only ours, and also doing Shraddha and Tarpana for our ancestors. So every day we should definitely pray for the well-being of the community of ancestors. That is Pitru Yagna. Then comes Brahma Yagna, our contribution to the Vedic cultural infrastructure. So firstly, by doing Parayanam, Veda Parayanam. Secondly, by systematic learning and teaching of the Shastras. And thirdly, by providing for those acharyas. We can give little donations, little contribution, whatever. Maybe we can have a monthly recurring donation thing, that whichever acharyas that you believe that they are really contributing in preserving the Shastras, they are really teaching. You can, maybe it could be a small amount. Again, I'm telling you, do Yatha Shakti. You can just pay, say 100 rupees, 500 rupees, 1000 rupees, whatever is comfortable to you. Do it consistently. That is the third way in which we can do Brahma Yagna. Then the fourth is Manushya Yagna, our contribution to the societal infrastructure. We all know that. How do we do that? By reaching out for the benefit of other human beings. Again, Yatha Shakti, in the form of Vitta Danam, Anna Danam, Vidya Danam, or any type of seva, but consistently every single day. And then finally, we spoke about Bhuta Yagna, our contribution to the ecological infrastructure. So simple things, water the plants in your house. If you don't have plants, get a plant, get a tulsi plant, water the plants, feed the birds and animals, and be very, very, very mindful. Do not pollute the environment. Do not litter. Be mindful in using resources. Slowly start moving towards minimalistic living and offering prayers and gratitude towards everything in this universe, and at all times being aware of their contribution towards us. And while doing these yagnas, always have the attitude of gratitude, not the attitude के अरे मैं तो कितना अच्छा, मैं कितना अच्छा हूँ, मैं दान कर रहा हूँ, I am doing the Panch Mahayagnas. Please don't bloat your ego by doing this. We are doing it to thank we are. So first, that awareness should come that how much they are doing for us, and we are just doing a chotu insignificant thing for them, but that's the only thing that we can do in our capacity. Just do it with a lot of love and lot of thank you. Yeah, so this is the summary of our Pancha Mahayagnas.
Wonderful. I also loved your concept of SIPs. I guess that is going to appeal to everybody. But this systematically and step by step, gradually and consistently doing things. I think that's what brings about that blossoming. Like you nurture that seed till it grows, but it is not once in a while, but every single day with a consistent dedication, and that's what it is asking. Small steps but consistent steps.
Absolutely.
You also said that in relationship we should try to be bigger contributors than consumers.
True.
Now is it like I contribute randomly whatever I feel, or do you have to contribute in the same way that I receive? So how do I decide that?
So no, it's absolutely not necessary that you reciprocate in the same way. And generally, it is not even possible. For example, your domestic help is contributing so much for your well-being. We have all realized this in the lockdown, right? When the domestic help was not available, we know what value they add to our lives. So, how do you contribute to her? So, she is cleaning your house. You can't go and clean her house, right? So, and you can't say that I pay her salary, so that's my contribution. No, that is not your contribution. Contribution means you are doing something selflessly, you're going an extra mile. So we can do small things, like maybe we can give food to her. So for what she is doing, we can we can we can like respectfully give food to her, okay? Or maybe we can pay for her kids school fees if convenient. Or maybe give her timely groceries or gifts during festivals. Any small selfless gesture that is beneficial to her. And most importantly, talk to her with kindness and respect. It is really important. This is how you can contribute to her. Like, you can't contribute the way she is contributing. Now, in our own family also, suppose your husband is contributing in the family. Maybe the husband is taking care of the house, the husband is taking care of the children, and the husband is being a very strong moral support for the family. Maybe you can contribute financially, or it could be vice versa, that what in the way that is generally seen, that the husband is contributing financially and the wife is taking care of the moral and emotional and other needs of the family. So we both need not contribute in the same way. And let's take one more example, which I think is important. So, whatever said and done, no, the government builds roads, the government gives us infrastructure, it gives us health and sanitation. Don't think about what the government is not doing for us. It's what it is not giving us. Think about what would your condition be without the things that the government is offering you. I mean, just think of these places, maybe like Israel or Syria, or I mean, we are in such a blissful position if we look at them, right? So, contribute to them by timely and fairly paying your taxes, by not practicing or encouraging corruption. So, basically, in any relationship, you can't give back what you have received, but you can contribute in your own way. You can give, so you definitely can't give fruits to the plants or water to the rivers, but you can surely contribute in preserving them or helping in their growth, or at least offering your heartfelt gratitude every single day. That is the least that we can do.
So I think when we do this in this process of this whole line of thinking where I want to contribute and in the way that is best suited to my capacity, I also in that process start thinking about what am I best at when I give.
Oh, yeah.
That is a whole line of self exploration that begins just rather than fitting in the societal roles. I think that's a journey that takes us within, and that's also something that in my design school, when you start creating, when you start designing, a part of that, what comes on the paper, what happens within that churning starts happening. What can I do best? What can I contribute? And I think that's a beautiful multifold process. So while we think that we are just giving and contributing, well, you're also exploring and discovering your own strengths. So, yeah, beautiful. Coming to the Manushya Yajna, while it sounds so nice and good, we have seen, and so I live in a city, and there will be when we are on the signals, and there are people who ask, and we give, and in front of our eyes, they just go and sell it back, Or not just them, there are so many examples where whatever that we contribute or we give danam to them, it is misused. And you see, it is not going into the way that you had intended. So, what do you think about that? Like, what to do about that?
So yes, that's another effort that really needs to be put in from our side. So Krishna Krishna talks about it in Bhagavad Gita. He explains what is meant by sattvic danam. So when we do danam, our purpose should be to reach sattvic danam, giving sattvic danam. Now what is sattvic danam? Sattvic danam, so Krishna says, Datavyam iti yad danam diyate an upkarine deshe kale cha patre cha tad danam sattvikam smritam. Means the danam which is given to a person with no expectation in return. Firstly, when you give, do not expect कि अच्छा now that person will start treating me nicely, you know, अब मुझे सलाम मारेगा जब भी मुझे देखेगा और मेरा गाड़ी का दरवाजा खुलेगा if you give to the watchman. Don't expect anything in return. If even that slight expectation comes, means it is not a sattvic dana. Secondly, do it with a feeling that it is one's duty to give. Hence, I am giving. And now the most important part comes that the danam, firstly, it should be given in the right place, the right time, and to a worthy person. So all these, so giving danam is also, so we can't just go ahead and give danam to the first person whom we meet and just say that चलो अपना काम हो गया, हमने तो दे दिया, अभी उसको जो करना है वो करेगा. That's really not the right way to do danam or manushya yagna. So the right place for danam is firstly necessary. For example, say there are major floods somewhere and we send them books and stationery. Does it help? No, it's not the right place for that kind of a danam. If somebody is really hungry, not eaten for days, and I say that, no, I don't want to give you food, but take these shoes. These are Nike shoes, they might really help you in running. Does it help? No, that's really not the right place, right, for Nike shoes or for running shoes. So give the danam has to be done at the right place. The correct thing has to be given. Then right time. See, someone needs help right now. Someone is in distress, in a desperate condition. Say somebody is in the hospital, he needs some funds right now. And you say that, no, I don't give danam, I just give danam on Grahan day, or I will just give danam on my birthday day. No, it doesn't happen that way. It has to be given in the right time. And finally, it should be given to a worthy person. This is very, very important. So again, like I said, the attitude can't be that whoever I find first, I give danam and my job is done. It is our responsibility to find a person who has the patrata of receiving that danam, who is really worthy. So who is in real need of what you are giving, or at least who is not going to misuse it. So imagine if you give money to somebody and that person uses it to gamble it or have alcohol and then beat their family. Who's going to be responsible for that hinsa, that violence? So, and the money that we give to the beggars on the street, which, the beggar racket and trafficking and all that, it encourages. So, now we can't completely track all of it, but all in all, it is important that we assess the person before giving dana. That becomes our responsibility. And, I personally feel that unless it is really, really needed, giving danam in the form of food or vidya or any other product is much better, or making them independent to earn their own money is much better and safer than giving money in the form of charity. So chances of misuse reduce.
Okay, that was a good insight into different factors that come into play even while you just want to contribute. One last question. It's kind of questioning the whole concept. So while you explained, we could sense the joy and the benefit, and but something still sticks around. That so okay. So if I'm contributing or if I'm doing this Mahayagya, I'm feeling happy right now doing that. That is one thing. I can experience it right away in this moment. But
Correct.
when you say that these actions of either parokara or parapidanam will bring punyam and papam, what is the proof? I mean, how do you know that, okay, in my next birth or maybe 20 years down the line, I'm going to like encash these or what? So,
Uh, yeah, it's the most fundamental question, and that comes in the fundamentals of Vedanta. But I'll just try my level best to explain in brief if I can. So, so basically, everything in this universe, no, it is based on certain universal laws. These universal laws, they act uniformly on every being. So, example, the law of gravity. It acts uniformly and absolutely precisely on everything that is there on earth without exception. Like we can't say that, oh, I am gravity's favorite, so it will not act on me, right? Gravity will not have a bias. It is a law of the universe. Same way, there is the law of karma, which is the law of cause and effect. There is an order. There is nothing random. There is nothing abstract. Like nothing is randomly happening in the universe. You can't sow a mango seed and expect strawberries to grow. Correct. If you sow a mango seed, only a mango tree will grow. But if you sow a cactus, only cacti will grow. Remember, like this is common sense, no? So you can't get a mango fruit if you sow cactus. So in the same way, harmful actions will generate painful fruits or dukham, and selfless or kind actions will lead to pleasant fruits or sukham. So this is basically a very short, precise answer to your question, the law of karma. And yeah, if you want more conviction on this explanation, you need to join the fundamentals class that we are going to start.
I think I am so looking forward to that because now you've sown the seeds and that curiosity has already started creeping in. Yes, so let's come to that. That class I am why I asked this question precisely was also that such profound questions and such simple or common sense based answers are there, and yet we somewhere move into that ambiguity and chaos where we think we don't know how to do it. But like I think you started your talk in the beginning, you said that answers are there and you already know. When you're talking about violence, there's nobody who doesn't know it. Everybody knows, and even these profound cosmic universal truths, we all at some level, in some way, directly, indirectly, we know it, and it could be as simple as she said. But then the common sense is not so common these days. That's the thing. But truly enriching session, Charviji. It was just this whole time went through without even noticing that it's so long. We've been hearing you. Value, adding value to our lives, and that's what I think the scriptural pearls of knowledge can do to us, and to imbibe that in our own lives. So I encourage everyone who is listening to her today to If you are a seeker and you have serious questions, do join our Introduction to Vedanta course. But having said that, even imbibing this Panchamahayagyas as a part of your day-to-day ritual, and you will see that transformation, and it is amazing how the same situation, same people, same life, and the experience of it changes so dramatically. So, and I think now while you were talking about the Brahma Yagya part, something that came into my mind. So while we are again and again saying about this Introduction to Vedanta course, I also want to announce it publicly that this course in itself is not having a particular price tag on it. It is Yatha Shakti, and we do have a wing of Damru, which is the foundation trust, the Damru Foundation. So whatever would be your contributions to this course would go to Damru Foundation, and it is pay what you can, pay as you can model. So there is no pressure on that also. So we are not asking for any I don't know what to say, monetary guarantee or something from your side, but yes, we do ask for open mind, a true seeking to these answers, not just, okay, let us intellectually engage in an argument and prove somebody. We're not here to prove anything to anybody. It's all about working and exploring your own self, a very compassionate way rather than confrontation. That's what I truly believe in. So you're all welcome to join that course and start your journey of, I think, 1 full year with Miss Charvi. And I personally am so looking forward to it. Thank you. Thank you, Charvi. Thank you so much for coming for this talk.
Thank you.
And yeah, truly grateful.
Thank you, Damru. Can I end with a prayer, please?
We can.
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Molly.
And thank you everybody for joining us today. And tomorrow, no, we're meeting now on Saturday. We have a wonderful speaker who is going to take this topic a little forward into self introspection and Swadhyaya as a model of value education. So we look forward to see you all on Saturday. Till then, stay safe and we meet on Saturday. Thank you. Namaskar.